morning, 7th grade. This is Miss Askin. Today we are going to be talking about Punnett squares and how we can use them to figure out the probability that an offspring will have a specific trait. And we're going to use some probability with that. So let's get started. Please feel free to pause this video if you need to slow down a little bit. And you can also replay certain portions of the video if you need to hear the explanation again. I would like you to take notes in your notebook as we go through the slides. So that's why it's a good practice to pause and replay as needed so that you can get the notes that you need. So we are going to begin. So we're going to go through each of the steps of how to solve a Punnett square problem, and then we are going to do an example together. So the first step of solving a Punnett square problem is to draw a square box divided into 4 square parts, just as the picture shows below. So you're going to draw a square box, divide it into 4s. Pretty simple, easy first step. Sometimes it will be given to you and already printed on the paper, but if you're doing this work in your notebook, this will be the first step you have to do. You have to draw the Punnett square. For step 2, you must determine the alleles of each of the parents. Now, alleles, that is one of our vocabulary words that we talked about a little while ago. That is why it's very important to know the vocabulary words that we went over, because we're going to start using them in these Punnett square problems. And if you are not sure exactly what those mean, you're going to have a hard time. So it's important to keep reviewing those words and make sure you know what they mean. So when we talk about alleles, okay, we're talking about the letters for each parent. Okay, so these are the father's alleles. Okay, the big B and the little b. Same with the mother. All right, so in this specific step, you're going to place one set of alleles on top of the columns, like so, and the other next to the rows of the box, like so. Okay, and it's labeled mother's genes and father's genes. It doesn't matter which you put where. If you put the mother's genes up here, you're still going to get the same answer. So that's also just something to keep in mind. Okay, so they put the parents' alleles, one of the parents' alleles on the columns and one of the parents' alleles on the rows. Okay, so that is the second step. The third step is to do the cross. Something to note, always write a dominant allele or an uppercase letter before a recessive allele, lowercase letter. Okay, I know these are not the same letters that we were using before, but it still shows a correct cross. So how you do the actual cross is you are going to take the letter above each column. So for example, this uppercase B, you're going to put it in each box below. So you have big B here, and then you're going to do the same thing with this lowercase b, or this recessive allele that the parent has. Lowercase b, lowercase b. All right. And then you're going to move on to the rows. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to put the allele in each box of the row. So we have a big B here, a big B here, and then a little b here and a little b here. Okay, so this is what, and I'm going to show you an example, like step by step, where you should only have like 4 letters in the box, and then how you do the second group of 4. But that is the gist of it. Okay, so you're going to go across and also down. Step 4 is to determine the likelihood of different combinations of alleles. So Punnett square problems, it's going to ask you what genotypes are present and in which percentages, how likely is it? So it sets up the problem here. So we have capital T stands for tall, and lowercase t stands for short. So this allele is dominant, and this allele is recessive. It also gives us the parents, big T little t crossed with a big T little t. So it does the first couple of steps. It does the cross, okay? And then we want to focus on the genotypes. So remember, genotypes have to do with what do the genes look like? How are the letters combined? Okay, another vocabulary word. So down here, if you look, we're not going to worry about the ratio. We're just going to worry about the percentages right here. All right, so it wants to know how likely is it to get certain combinations. So we have uppercase T, uppercase T. That's one option, okay? So for here, they have 25%. They got 25%, okay, because think of this whole box as 100, all right? And if you divide 100 by 4, right, that's 25. So each of these boxes represents 25%. Could also think of it like a dollar. 4 quarters make up a dollar, right? So for uppercase T, they have 25%. There's only one box that has that genotype, so that's 25%. Big T, little t equals 50%. You have a 25% box right here and a 25% box right here. So that is how they got to 50%. And then lastly, little t, 25%. This box right here. A good way to check your work is to make sure that these add up to 100%. If they don't, you likely did something wrong. So that's just a way to check yourself to make sure that you didn't make a mistake somewhere. So that is how you find the genotypes. And the last step is to determine which trait is expressed. And the trait that is expressed that you can see, the physical feature you can see with your eye, is called the phenotype. So we want to determine what phenotypes are present. Again, if you look down here, we're not going to worry about the phenotypic ratio, all right? We're just going to worry about the percentages right now. Now, for our purposes, there are only going to be 2 possible phenotypes as we're starting out with Punnett squares. We're going to start simple. So there's only going to be 2 options on the sheet that you do on the practice problems that we do. So just keep that in mind. So in this case, say we're talking about a pea plant. The pea plant is either going to be tall or short. Those are the only 2 options. Now you have to figure out what letter combinations are going to give me a tall plant. Anytime you see an uppercase T, it's going to be tall. The plant is going to be tall because that gene is dominant, right? Right here. So we need to figure out how many offspring have a capital T. We have 1, 2, and 3 right here. So that's where they got 75% tall. 25 plus 25 plus 25. So there is a 75% chance when you cross these two parents that the offspring is going to be tall. And then on the other hand, you have little t, which is short, okay? There's no other way to get a short pea plant. And so we're going to put 25%. Just this one box. Again, it's helpful to check in case, make sure that these are equal to 100%. We are going to do an example together in a second after I read this. I'm going to switch my screen so that I can write with my mouse so we can do this problem together. So this problem says, in guinea pigs, rough coats with lots of swirly cowlicks, just like curls, are dominant over smooth coats. If a big R guinea pig is crossed with a big R little r guinea pig, what are the possible genotypes and phenotypes of the offspring? What are the chances of each? So we're going to go solve that problem right now. Okay, I'm going to switch over to where I can write. The first thing I'm just going to do is I'm going to type out what is dominant, what trait is dominant, and which trait is recessive. That's just going to help me remember and to keep that in mind. Okay, so it's saying, if you reread this, rough coats are dominant. So I'm going to just put rough coats. I'll just make this bigger so it'll fit, rough coats. And then for recessive, we have smooth coats. Okay, that is just again to help me remember which trait is dominant, which one's recessive. So I'm going to get my pen. All right, we're going to go through the steps. Remember, the first step was to draw the box. The box is already on the paper for us, so we don't have to do that step. The second step is to put the parent alleles on the Punnett square. So we have big R, big R. I'm going to put those above the columns. Big R, big R. Okay. And then the other parent is big R, little r. Big R, little r. Okay. Now, the third step is to do the cross. I am going to take the first column, take the first allele, and I'm going to put it in each box below. So we have a big R here and a big R here. I'm going to do the same thing with the second column. Big R, big R. I'm going to bring it down. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the rows. Big R here, big R here, little r, little r. So essentially, it's the two letters and where they meet. So if you're looking at this box, you have one big R from this column and the little r from the row. Okay? So that is the third step. The fourth step is to determine the genotypes. Remember, the genotypes are the letter combinations. So most times you have 3 options. They're not always going to be present, but okay. So we have big R, big R, and little r, little r. It might be helpful just for you to write them all out, okay? Even if it's going to be 0%, it's helpful to do it this way. So you have 2 capital letters, 1 capital, 1 lowercase, and then 2 lowercase. So I would always start off the genotypes like this. So now we're going to do our percentages. So how many squares are big R, big R? 1, 2. Now if each of these is 25, all right, 25 plus 25 is 50. So we have 50% big R, big R. And we have the same thing with little r, big R, little r, I'm sorry. So that's also going to be 50%. And we're just going to put a 0% here, okay? So the offspring have a 50% chance of having big R as their genotype. And then the other 50% have the chance of having big R, little r. So those are the genotypes, and the percent chance or likelihood that those will be the genotypes. And the last step we're going to do is the phenotypes. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to label. Just make this a little bigger. All right. Now, remember what I said. For our cases, we're only going to have 2 options for phenotypes. It's either going to be rough coats or smooth coats. All right, and again, we're just going to do the percentages. Remember, phenotype is what you see with your eye. Okay, is it rough or is it smooth? Remember, rough is the dominant trait, so wherever there is a big R, it's going to show that trait, so it's going to be rough coat. So it turns out that all of these boxes have a capital R. So that actually means that it's going to be 100% are going to have the rough coats. And then you have 0% with the smooth coats. Again, feel free to rewatch this example if you need to go over it again. Okay? Lastly, to make sure that we understand what was going on in this lesson, there is a Google form that I need you to complete. The link is here. It will also be in Google Classroom for you to click as well. So that is it for today's lesson. Have a great day, and I will see you guys later.